On day 32 of Diddy's federal sex trafficking trial, his attorney, Marc Agnifilo, told the jury that sexual contact between Diddy and his accusers was consensual and not part of a criminal racketeering enterprise. Here are the highlights from the closing arguments.
This trial is a tale of two trials. It is a trial told from the mouths of witnesses. It is a trial told from the text messages. There's the trial told from the videos. In a word, there's a trial that's told in the evidence. That's one trial. The second trial is a very different trial. The second trial is the trial as told from the mouths of the prosecutors. And the trial told from the mouths of the prosecutors is very different. Nothing like the trial told from the evidence. Now that you've heard the evidence, I'm going to ask you to reach certain conclusions. And I'm going to back them up over the next few hours. The first conclusion I'm going to ask you to reach is that this case is badly exaggerated. It's made up, in a word. From the mouths of the witnesses, from the evidence, from the text message, what do you see? What is that trial? What's the trial of the evidence? It's personal use drugs. That's what it is. That's just what it is. It's nothing else. What's the trial of the evidence? The trial of the evidence is a lifestyle. You want to call it swingers, you want to call it threesomes, whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. That's what the evidence shows. That is not what the prosecutors are saying to you. The prosecutors have charged one of the most serious, complicated, comprehensive statutes on the books. They have charged personal use drugs and threesomes as racketeering. That is the other trial. That, I submit to you, is the false trial. That is the exaggerated trial. That is not the real trial. Sometimes the real things in life are hard. The lesson that you learn in life is that the lessons in life come from showing that you can do something hard. No one remembers the easy days, maybe a vacation here and there, but other than that, you remember the hard things. You remember when it was hard. I can't do that. And then you do it, and you know you can do it again. And then you do it again. And that is how you build character. That's how you have a real life. These people didn't always like him, but they grew, and he was important to them. And it was real, and it was diversity. We're trying now to do something that we've given a label to: diversity, equity, and inclusion. He was doing this in 1993 as a 24-year-old by himself. Not because some government told him to, because that's who he was. That's who he was. That's who he is. That's what his businesses are. That's what the evidence shows you his businesses are. That's not what the government says his businesses are. What did the government say his businesses are? Racketeering enterprise. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You heard, did any witness get on that witness stand and say, yes, I was part of a racketeering enterprise? I engaged in racketeering as part of an enterprise? You didn't hear that from the evidence. You didn't hear that from a witness. You heard that from the prosecutors alone. That's the fake trial I'm telling you about. That's the fake trial. Let me show you some things already that you know already about this man's character. Jane has a beautiful house. She has a beautiful house for her child, who I am sure loves and deserves the beautiful house. That's the evidence from the trial, the real trial. What's the evidence from the fake trial? That's coercion. Come on, please. The man takes care of people. That's what's in the evidence. Jane came up here and testified against him. I don't know what she's doing today. I hope she's having a nice day. But you know where she's doing it? In a house he's paying for. And I hope they're having a nice Friday. His family's here because he took care of them too. Because he takes care of people. He takes care of people. That's who he is. But the government executes these search warrants. Hundreds of agents, special response team, and I guess it's all worth it because they found the Astroglide. They found it in boxes of Astroglide taken off the streets. Phew, I feel better already. Artificial lubricant, not for me. Boxes of Astroglide in the garage, I think. I think that's where he was keeping it. But they got it. The streets of America are safe from the Astroglide. You know they are. And they got the baby oil and they found the personal use drugs. They did it. It's all worth it. Thank goodness for the special response team. They found the Astroglide. They found the baby oil. They got like, what, 5 Valium pills. Way to go, fellas. Photographing you, I understand why you can't do that. When you're doing work like that, whoa, you guys just do you. They took Astroglide and they took baby oil, and that ends up being the evidence in this case because his businesses are outstanding. There's nothing about the businesses defined. There's nothing about the businesses to make into a criminal case. So what do? They take yellow crime scene tape, figuratively, and they wrap it around his bedroom. Crime scene, your bedroom, your hotel rooms, where you go with your girlfriends. Crime scenes, a lot of yellow tape. Every one of these hotels where he went with one of his girlfriends is a possible racketeering act. Hundreds? How many? 300 racketeering acts. That's a lot of crimes. I know it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws. We need a bigger roll of crime scene tape, because that's just not going to be enough. So that's what they do. They go into the man's bedroom. They go into the man's most private life. Where is the crime scene? The crime scene is your private sex life. That's the crime scene. And keep in mind something else. Nobody invited the government. Nobody went to the police. Every phone that I know of has a 9 and a 1 and a second one. Nobody calls 911. Nobody calls the FBI. No one calls Department of Homeland Security. Nobody calls anybody. They do call somebody, though. They call civil plaintiffs' lawyers. That's who they call, because this isn't about justice. This isn't about a crime. This is about money. It's about money. And that's another part of the big themes in this case. Money. Money. Cassie Ventura sued Sean Combs for $30 million because Sean Combs had $30 million. If he doesn't have $30 million, there's no lawsuit. She sues him for $30 million because he had $30 million. And you heard that this investigation, this very investigation, came out of that civil case. No $30 million, no lawsuit. No $30 million, no lawsuit, no criminal case. That's why we're here. We're here because of money. Cassie made an adult choice. She made the right choice for Cassie, probably. Who's to say? But she made a choice. She made a definite choice. She said, you know what? I just can't do this anymore, and I'm not going to do this anymore, and she left. Like she could always leave. And ask yourself, what happened? Cassie leaves. I've had enough. Does anything happen to her? No. Every witness here, if I would have done something, something could have happened. Something would have happened to me. I was afraid that something would happen. Did anything in this case happen ever? Was there one thing that ever happened? She was always free to leave. She chose to stay because she was in love with him and he was in love with her. And if you have any doubt, just pick a random message from August, September, October 2018 and just read it. And you will see these two people loved each other. They were deeply in love and there was nothing. If racketeering conspiracy had an opposite, it would be their relationship. They are truly deeply in love with each other, for real. And they met. They were their best selves when it came to sex. They fought when it came to other women. There were times Sean Combs was impatient. There was times Sean Combs was proud. I think that's probably the right word for what I'm trying to convey. He was proud. I don't like the way you spoke to me. You're not treating me with enough respect. You hurt my feelings. He gets his feelings hurt because he feels disrespected. But the thing they really argue about, what they tend to fight about, is jealousy and infidelity. That's where they were not so good. But where they're really, really together, they're together when it comes to sex. They just are. They just found each other's match. And that's a beautiful thing when it happens. And it happened to them. There is not, I submit to you, there is not. I don't know how many text messages there are between Cassie and Sean Combs in this case. Maybe thousands. You won't find one where she's like, I didn't like that sex. I am not attracted to you. I don't like our sex life. It's just not for me. Now, it's an 11-year relationship, and sex is important in any relationship. So, is it perfect? It's not perfect. But if you look at the text messages, you see what the issues are. And the issues are jealousy, other women. They are together. They match up when it comes to sex. And I guess if you had to sort of give their sex life a label, I guess you could call them swingers. I guess you could call it a lifestyle. What do you see in the evidence? You see a lot of things in the evidence. You see Cassie reaching out to Garrett from Cowboys 4 Angels saying, "Do you know of any swingers clubs? I mean, this was their life. No one is forcing her to do this. She is a woman who actually likes sex. Good for her. She is beautiful. She should. She is intense. She's unafraid." I mean, if you had to give Cassie one word, the word that comes to my mind, unafraid. She's unafraid. I'm unafraid. I'm just going for it. And she is unafraid about everything. Let's go to the 2004 kidnapping. So the way she says it is that she and Mike B, who's working, I think she might have been a stylist. She said back at the time, are getting like their nails done. I don't know. They're doing something. They're doing something. And she has jewelry in her backpack. And then the jewelry is gone. And so what she does, this is a very important part. What she does, and I want to get it because I want to get it exactly right. When she realizes the jewelry's gone, this is a quote, "I called everybody at 1440 and I told them to lock everybody in and search them." That's what she says. That she calls 1440 their main office. I said, "Lock everybody in and search them," Capricorn said. What goes on to happen is lie detector tests. Polygraph examinations are administered. And she says she got one. And we'll talk about hers in a second. And Mike B got another. And what she says about hers is that it lasted all day long for 5 days. And the polygraph examiner, who is this humongous man, 5 times wider than her, threatened to throw her in the East River, okay? A couple of things about this. This is a kidnapping. She's not like that she was like harassed or that, she was inconvenienced. She was kidnapped. She went home every day. So what is the government alleging? Is the government alleging 5 consecutive kidnappings? Here's the Monday kidnapping. Here's the Tuesday kidnapping, the Wednesday kidnapping, the Thursday kidnapping, and finally, the Friday kidnapping. They just allege 1 kidnapping. So was she kidnapped when she was home by herself? She said Paul Arthur drove her home. A door-to-door kidnapping. That's great. This is charged. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York is charging this as a kidnapping. A polygraph examination from 21 years ago where she goes home every day. That's just not a kidnapping. She is going home. So, whatever happens, even if the building locks from the outside, even if a New York City building locks from the outside, and she is locked up there in the 6th floor getting a lie detector test for 10 hours a day for 5 consecutive days, she's going home. It's just not a kidnapping. And what did she say? She said, "I kept doing it because I wanted to pass and get back to my job." Now, I have no doubt that a lie detector test is unsettling. That's the whole reason investigators use it. It's unsettling. So I have no doubt that she was unsettled. She was not kidnapped. Of course, she was not kidnapped because the kidnapper doesn't drive you. So how does it work? I mean, let's be honest for a second. You guys are stuck in here for long hours. At one point, the day ends, you go home, you come back. Anyone feel kidnapped? You are not kidnapped. You're about as kidnapped as she was kidnapped. She wasn't kidnapped, and neither are you. So let's talk about the Porsche. You saw the pictures. I swear on myself, I'm going to show you little stuff as possible. There's 2 things in that Porsche, only 2. 2 things are in that Porsche. There's a Molotov cocktail and there's a single glove. Now, Cuddy keeps a neat car. There are no bubblegum wrappers. There's no Easy Pass receipts. I don't know if Easy Pass gives receipts. They probably don't. There's nothing. No trash in the car. Take a look at the car. It's crystal clean. There's 2 things in it. The Molotov cocktail that didn't work out, and there's that 1 glove. And remember, Lance Jimenez was his name. He testified as expert witness in fire science, or whatever he testified as an expert in. Remember what he said to you? He showed you a bunch of pictures. Recognize what these pictures are? I think there was 38 of them. Yeah, these are the pictures that my partners took that day. These are all the pictures. Well, it's not all of them because we had to show you the picture of the glove. I know what you're thinking. Incident in California involving a glove? Really? But it's true. We had to show you a glove. Why would he withhold the picture of the glove? Is there a good reason to not show the glove? They're showing you 38 pictures. Why not show you the picture of the glove? Why take the picture of the glove and say, you know what, they won't notice? Yeah, these are the pictures, blah, 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 blah. Not all of them. They plucked the glove from the pictures. Now, am I suggesting something? I'm suggesting the investigation stunk. That's what I'm suggesting. It's a terrible investigation. Let me tell you why it's terrible. He told you, he says, we recovered 2 fingerprints. Well, what happened to them? I don't know. Okay, he's charged with arson. That's real. You're going to go in the jury room, and you're going to determine his fate on arson charge. And investigator Jimenez told you, I don't know what happened to those 2 prints. No idea. I can't give you any help at all. 2 prints. No idea. Okay. There was what he called a hit, his words. There was a DNA hit. That's what he said. That's what he testified to. There was a DNA hit. Now, it wasn't enough DNA to indicate a person, but it was consistent with a female contributor. So let's keep our definitions nice and tight, okay? Partial DNA profile, meaning we don't have a person. Consistent with a female contributor. Looking back, trying to remember what he was like on the stand, did you find him kind of unhelpful? Did you think he was just not real? He wasn't really helping the process that you guys have to do? You would think this man never heard of the letters D and N and A being in the same sentence. I have no idea. I don't do it myself. No one thinks you do it. You send it out to a laboratory like every police department in America. Of course you don't do it. My partner sent it out. Where did you send it out to? I don't know. Can you imagine what his testimony would have been if it came back with his DNA? Do you think it would have been like that? He would have known everything about DNA. DNA is my middle name. But partial female contributor? I don't even know when the results came back. Sent it out to a laboratory? I have no idea. DNA, finally, in this case, there's evidence of something. And investigator Jimenez couldn't care less. Never followed up on the fingerprints. Never followed up on the DNA. But he did 2 things. And I wonder if it's a coincidence. He tried to track down Cassie. He tried to track down Capricorn. Are they men or are they women? Huh. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Something has gone on at this trial that really is unfair, which is that every event that could be sort of scandalous or bad press is only about Combs. That's just not true, though. Cassie is a public persona as well. And when we get to what happens with the videotape, you're really going to see that. Because Cassie says something that's very important, which is, I don't want that videotape in public. I have a movie coming out. So let's balance this out and see it for what it is. They don't want bad press. This would be bad press. I submit to you, listen, she probably would rather be at his house, but that doesn't make it a kidnapping. So this is not a kidnapping because what she really wanted was to go to his house. Okay. Bribery of the security guard at the Intercontinental. Let me read you the jury charge on this. This is the charge at page of 26. 1. The conspirator gave or offered or promised a bribe to a witness, or a person about to be called as a witness, or a person about to give material information to a law enforcement official about a crime. A law enforcement official about a crime. 2. The conspirator acted with the corrupt intent to persuade the witness or person to agree that the bribe would unlawfully influence the testimony or information that the witness or person would give. This is about law enforcement. This is about influencing law enforcement. This is not about making sure you don't get bad publicity, okay? And that was everybody's motive that day. Everybody was moved to make sure we don't get bad publicity. Now, before I go any further, I want to read you guys something that was testified to by Mr. Kaplan. And I'm looking now at page 2332, line 19. Q. So you had some measure of distrust for the hotel staff that they might release something. A large measure. Q. A large measure of distrust for the hotel staff? A. Q. And why did you have this large measure of distrust for the hotel staff? A. Because money's involved and people want a payday. If they steal security footage, or if there's a security guard who leaks footage or any number of permutations, that would have been severely compromised. And it would have been a terrible look on me, and it's not what I wanted. I didn't want his reputation to be compromised. Q. You think that would be unfair? A. I think that's the way the world works. Q. I mean, you use the word payday? A. To, sell the video or the imagery to a news outlet in exchange for money as a hotel employee. That's what they're worried about. He testified to it. That's what they're worried about. They're worried not about the police. They're not worried about the police. I mean, listen, it's a horrible video. It's a misdemeanor. They're worried about terrible publicity, and that's what he says. That's what he says. And guess what happened? Footage never made it quite to the trial. He's right. He was right to be worried. He was right to be worried that people are going to get a payday. He's right to be worried that if a hotel employee, gets something that could get him some money or her money, that they might do it. It happens. And it happened. So that's what they're worried about. They're not worried about the police. The police are nowhere near this situation. The police are not called. Cassie doesn't want the police called. Mr. Combs obviously doesn't want the police called. No one calls the police. There's no police. I'm going to talk about the Mann Act transportation for prostitution. The government put up a poster. I couldn't count all the guys in it, but it was 30-something, a lot of guys, okay? They called two. Now, they prove their case, they don't prove their case any way they want. They called two, and the two that they called were Daniel Phillips and Sherry Hayes. They could have called everybody. They could have called anyone they wanted. And you see how this works. If they want to give a witness immunity, you see that happen in this court. It happened more than a few times. I don't want to testify. Well, too bad. We're giving you immunity. Get on the stand, and you're going to testify, okay? They called two people. Here's the fascinating thing about the two people that they chose to call. Both of them utterly disavowed being a prostitute. Both of them utterly disavowed having sex for money. So when the company gets up here and says, not sex for money, I'm not even going to talk about it. They chose those witnesses. They put those witnesses on the stand. Those witnesses said, I'm not a prostitute. I'm not engaged in prostitution. I don't have sex for money. That's a government witness. And you didn't hear any examination of that. That's ridiculous. Of course, that's what you are. They called these witnesses as government witnesses. They got on the stand. They told you that story, and they got off the stand and left, and didn't hug anybody. Only one person did that. So now they say their walk. And so when I said at the trial of two trials, this is a perfect example. This is the best example I think I've got in the whole case of the trial of two trials. They call witnesses who get on the stand and say, I'm not a prostitute. I don't have sex for money. They let him walk out that door, and then they say, everybody's having sex for money. Well, you need evidence. You need witnesses to say that. Were these the two best of the 30? 27? 39? These were the two best. The two guys who, A, didn't travel anywhere, and B, were not prostitutes and did not have sex for money. They were very clear. There was no discussion of sex for money. There was no negotiation of sex for money. There was no agreement of sex for money. So here's what I want to say to you. It takes a lot of courage to acquit. It takes a lot of courage to get a jury summons and come into a United States courtroom, where one side is the government of the United States and the other side is some person, and listen to the evidence, especially in a long trial, and acquit. It takes a lot of courage to acquit. This trial is like any other trial, and very different from any other trial. I think that the evidence shows, and you can conclude, that the government targeted Sean Combs. I think you can see that in the evidence, and let me show you why. Nobody came to law enforcement. I wouldn't be able to say that to you if Cassie came to the Department of Homeland Security and said, I am the victim of sex trafficking. Or if Jane came to the Department of Homeland Security and said, I'm the victim of sex trafficking. But that's not what happened. The Cassie lawsuit comes out, and these guys went and wanted to make a case because it's Sean Combs. It's not like every other case. It's not like every other case. And you are a critical part. You're such a critical part of this process. This is not one of the great things that America's done really, really right is they have between every single person and the consequences of a criminal conviction, a jury of his or her peers. It's one of the great things we have done as a country. And today, you guys are the United States of America. This is your courtroom. This is your house. You should feel bold. You should feel the courage that you will need to call this as you see it. And I am asking you to summon that courage and to do what needs to be done and to do the right thing. And I'm asking you to acquit Sean Combs of all the counts in this indictment. He is not a racketeer. He is not a conspirator to commit racketeering. He is none of these things. He is innocent. He sits there innocent. Return him to his family, who have been waiting for him.
The defense's arguments just do not hold up. I'm not going to address all of the stuff you just heard over the last 5 or so hours. I don't need to, and I don't have time. Instead, I'm going to focus on the defense's 3 core arguments. First, the suggestion that the defendant didn't pay for sex. Second, the suggestion that he didn't commit any racketeering acts. And if he did, he certainly didn't do it with an enterprise. And third, that Cassie, Jane, and Mia lied to you. Let's start with the payment for sex. The defendant here tries to wiggle out of the transportation charges by claiming he never intended to pay anyone for sex. Sure, he flew escorts across the country. He had them have sex in front of him while he masturbated, and then he handed them wads of cash. Those things have nothing to do with each other at all. Totally unrelated. It doesn't even pass the laugh test. Common sense alone tells you that when the defendant flew those escorts out and paid them, it was not for their scintillating conversation. It was for sex. Now let's talk about count 1, the racketeering charge. There can't seriously be a dispute that the defendant had an inner circle. The witnesses and the text messages make crystal clear that the defendant's security team and KK, his chief of staff, served as his most trusted advisors. And there was a structure. The defendant at the top, security and his chief of staff right below him, and then the army of assistants below him. They were loyal to him for years, and they had 2 goals: get the defendant whatever he wants, when he wants it, and protect the defendant's reputation at all costs. Now, the defense suggests that there couldn't have been an enterprise because they didn't only have unlawful purposes, but an enterprise can have lawful and unlawful purposes. An enterprise is just a group of people who get together for a common purpose. It doesn't have to be an illegal purpose. Any purpose is enough. And here, you obviously have that. So that brings us to the argument the defense spent most of their time on, that Cassie, Jane, and Mia are liars. And they're liars, first and foremost, because they wanted it. Of course they wanted it. Cassie wanted an escort to urinate in her mouth. And by the way, can we pull up transcript page 514, please? Mr. Agnifilo suggested to you that we didn't have any support in the record for what Ms. Slavic said to you yesterday. Can we pull up this transcript page, please? Q. Who directed an escort to urinate on you? A. Sean. The defense's theory is that Cassie wanted that. The defense's theory is also that Jane wanted to have sex with Antoine when she was bruised and beaten, that Mia wanted her boss coming into her room at night and penetrating her. And with respect to what Cassie and Jane were doing, what we're talking about here is not preferences for lemonade or preferences for the beach. What we're talking about is being in a dark hotel room, awake for days, covered in oil, wearing 8-inch heels, often with a UTI, having your pelvic area sore, sitting in the same position for hours, performing oral sex for hours, having sex for hours, including with strangers, having unprotected sex with stranger after stranger, a rotation of men for days. The defense wants you to believe that Cassie and Jane wanted that, or were willing to go along with it, like somebody might go along with lemonade. That's ridiculous on its face. Almost as ridiculous is the suggestion that the defendant had absolutely no clue that Cassie, Jane, and Mia did not want all of the sex that you've heard about at this trial. What the defense is suggesting is that these women lied to you repeatedly. They lied throughout all of their testimony, including when they told you about times they resisted sex. Remember, Mia told you that she told the defendant no on a plane. Cassie told you that she told him no on her 29th birthday. Jane told you that she told him no in June 2024. So what the defense is saying here is that these women all lied. They all wanted every single sex act you heard about, and they certainly never told the defendant they didn't want to do it. For the defense to be right, that means that 3 witnesses came here and committed perjury in front of you. But there's a problem with that. These 3 women have no reason to lie. None. They don't get anything out of lying at this trial. Over the past 20 years, he had gotten away with crime after a crime, refusing to take no for an answer without facing a single consequence. He kidnapped Capricorn at gunpoint, broke into Cuddy's home, and beat Cassie mercilessly in front of Capricorn and Rube, and nothing happened. He crisscrossed the country with ecstasy, cocaine, and ketamine, giving it out like candy, and nothing happened. He flew escorts across the country and overseas to have paid sex with his girlfriends countless times, and nothing happened. He coerced first Cassie and then Jane into freak-offs, and nothing happened. He forced Mia to sleep in a room with no lock, screamed at her, threw things at her, forced her to work days on end, raped her, and nothing happened. He beat Cassie in front of his employees, in front of her friends, even in front of escorts at freak-offs, and nothing happened. He attacked Cassie in a hotel hallway. It was caught on video. He bribed security guards to cover it up, and nothing happened. So, of course, the defendant was brazen enough to think he could get away with more crimes, even while under federal investigation. In his mind, he was untouchable. A god among men, as George Kaplan put it. And who would ever stand up to a god? The defendant never thought that the women he abused would have the courage to speak out loud what he had done to them. He didn't think that Cassie, Jane, or Mia, or any of the other women that you heard from at this trial would dare to face his wrath, and he certainly didn't think men like Kid Cudi, Deontay Nash, Daniel Phillip, Israel Flores, or David James would take the stand and back those women up. But he was wrong. For 20 years, the defendant got away with his crimes. That ends in this courtroom. The defendant is not a god. He is a person, and in this courtroom, he stands equal before the law. Overwhelming evidence proves his guilt. It is time to hold him accountable. Find him guilty.